My fiance's brother dropped to one knee at a family party facing me, not his own girlfriend, and said, "Marry me instead." I laughed. Then I realized he wasn't joking. I said no. His mother called me cruel, and that's when I decided I'd stop playing nice. I'm the quiet one who doesn't pick fights. I work in tech marketing. I read the room. I measure outcomes. I speak last. When I met my fiancé, I learned quickly that his family has a golden child, the brother. Growing up, he crashed things and they wrote checks. He failed things and they blamed the world. I brushed it off. Families are messy, but there were tells. The brother's stare lingering too long. The mother's way of saying our money when she meant someone else's. Once the brother bragged about investments, then asked me what APR meant. I smiled, filed it away. The night of the party, everyone had coffee and cake. The father poured decaf. The sister winked at me like, "You've got this." Then the brother stood, cleared his throat, and turned my engagement into a stage. He walked toward me with a little velvet box and a speech about soulmates and meant to be. My fiancé froze for a half second, stunned. "I didn't put it away," I said, calm, direct. The room went silent like a TV on mute. We kept talking. I stood. My fiancé crossed the room. The coffee table went over. The mother screamed at me for humiliating her baby. Not a word about how her baby had just tried to hijack my proposal in front of my fiancé. The father put a hand on his forehead, like he'd seen this movie before. The sister grabbed my arm. We left. I didn't cry in the car. I cataloged. The next day, the brother texted, "It was a test. If you loved him, you'd say no." The mother called me heartless and told me to apologize. I replied once, "No." Then I went quiet because silence isn't surrender. It's strategy, tiny steps, mini rewards. I blocked the brother from the wedding, guest list, and sent the mother a polite, "We'll keep the day small." She wrote paragraphs. I sent one line. I asked my fiancé gently if he'd ever seen actual paperwork for the family funds his grandfather left for the kids. He hadn't. I suggested he request statements just to have facts before feelings. He did. The sister helped. The father didn't fight us. Odd, right? Another tell. The statements arrived like a flood. Transfers. From a trust label for education and life milestones. Monthly rent for the brother, a car, paid cash, business expenses for a food truck that tanked. Streaming subscriptions, dating app premiums. Meanwhile, my fiancé's line showed crumbs. The sisters, too. I printed everything. No emojis, no threats, just ink. Then I booked coffee with a lawyer. Not a loud one. A patient one with a neat binder. We built a timeline. We attached screenshots. We didn't post. We didn't go off. We didn't warn. We served. The phone exploded. "Misunderstanding," said the father. "We always meant to pay it back," heard the mother. The brother sent a single text. "Elbow." I didn't reply. I adjusted our wedding plan. Smaller, cleaner, cheaper. What we saved on chairs we spent on peace. Weeks later, the mother asked for a sit-down to heal. I agreed as long as it was at our place. Noon, daylight. She arrived with the brother. Perfect hair and imperfect memory, prepared to guilt me into rescinding the drama. The father hovered near the doorway. The sister sat beside me, arms crossed, a silent metronome. The mother launched in. I was insecure. The proposal was a prank. The real family forgives. The brother said the test proved I loved the fiancé, so what's the big deal? I nodded sympathetically. Totally. Since we're clearing the air, a quick housekeeping thing. I slid a folder onto the table. Tabs, dates, amounts. The brother's signature on a car purchase. Transfers labeled rent, payments to his card, some mother. Blanche, the brother swallowed. The father looked like he might finally sleep. "And this," I said, placing the last page on top, "is the stipulation your lawyer signed. The one freezing assets and appointing a neutral trustee, the brother's share, is locked until he holds a real job for a year. The rest is repaid with interest." The mother's voice went high and thin. "Please, if you undo this, we can make it right." The brother stared at the floor. "I'm being evicted," he whispered. I stood, smoothed the folder closed, and handed it back, without a word because my answer was already stamped by a judge. I opened the door, and when they begged in the hallway, I shut it softly for my fiance's brother shocked everyone at a family party when he dropped to one knee in front of me, not his own girlfriend, and said, "Marry me instead." I laughed at first, thinking it was a joke, but then I realized he was serious. I said no. His mother called me cruel. That's when I knew I'd stop playing nice. I'm the quiet one who doesn't pick fights. I work in tech marketing, I read the room, measure outcomes, and speak last. When I met my fiancé, I quickly learned his family had a golden child, the brother. He crashed cars, they wrote checks. He failed at things, they blamed the world. I wrote it off as family drama, but noticed little tells. The brother's lingering stares, the mother saying, "our money," when she meant someone else's. At the party, after coffee and cake, the brother cleared his throat, turning my engagement into a public spectacle. He approached with a velvet box and a speech about soulmates. My fiancé froze, stunned. I didn't put the ring away. Calmly, I said, "Not happening." Silence fell like a muted TV. The coffee table went over. The mother screamed I humiliated her baby, but ignored how her son hijacked my proposal. The father looked like he'd seen this play before. The sister grabbed my arm and we left. I didn't cry in the car. I cataloged. The next day, the brother texted, "It was a test. If you loved him, you'd say no." The mother called me heartless, demanding an apology. I replied once, "No," then went silent. Silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. I blocked the brother from the wedding guest list and told the mother politely, "We'll keep it small." She sent paragraphs. I replied in one line. I asked my fiancé if he'd ever seen paperwork for the family funds his grandfather left. He hadn't. I suggested he request statements for facts, not feelings. He did. The sister helped. The father didn't fight. Another tell. The statements came flooding in. Trust transfers for education, rent for the brother, car payment, failed food truck expenses, streaming, dating apps. My fiancé's accounts showed crumbs. The sister's too. I printed it all. No emojis, no threats, just ink. I booked coffee with a patient lawyer and we built a timeline with screenshots. We didn't post, rant, or warn. We served. Phones exploded. "Misunderstanding," said the father. "We meant to pay it back," said the mother. The brother sent one text. "Lol blow." I didn't reply. I scaled back our wedding. Smaller, cleaner, cheaper. Money saved went to peace. Weeks later, the mother asked for a healing sit-down. I agreed. Only at our place, at noon, with daylight. She arrived with the brother. Perfect. Hair, imperfect memory, ready to guilt me into rescinding. The father hovered near the door. The sister sat stiffly at my side. The mother launched accusations about insecurity, saying the proposal was a prank, the family forgives, and the brother's test proved my love. What was the big deal? I nodded sympathetically. Totally. Since we're clearing the air, I said, sliding a folder across the table. Tabs, dates, amounts, brother's signature on a car purchase, transfers for rent and payments. The mother blanched, the brother swallowed. Father looked like he might finally rest. "This," I said, placing the last page on top, "is the stipulation your lawyer signed. Freezing assets and appointing a neutral trustee. Brother's share locked until he holds a real job for a year, the rest repaid with interest." Her voice rose thin. "Undo this, and we can make it right." Brother stared, whispering, "I'm being evicted." I closed the folder, handed it back wordlessly. My answer was stamped by a judge. I opened the door. When they begged in the hallway, I shut it softly behind me. Story. My 6-year-old son went to Disney with my ex-wife, her new husband, and her parents. My phone rang. "This is Disney staff. Your child is at Lost and Found." Shaking, my son said, "Dad, they left me and went home." I called my ex-wife. She laughed. "Oh, really?" Didn't notice. Her new husband chuckled. "Good kids never get lost." They had no idea what was coming. Chapter 1. The Call. I was fixing the squeaky cabinet hinge in my kitchen when my phone buzzed. The number on the screen said Disney Guest Services. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe a promotional call. But when I picked up, the woman's voice was serious. "Mr. Collins, this is Disney staff. Your son is safe, but he's here at Lost and Found. He says he can't find his family." My stomach dropped. Safe? What do you mean he can't find them? He's with his mother. A pause. "Sir, your son says they left." I rushed outside, pacing, gripping the phone like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. Then a small, trembling voice came on the line. "Dad." They left me. They said they were going to ride the grown-up rides without me, but I waited and then they went home. My knees almost gave out. My 6-year-old was 2 hours away from home, abandoned in the middle of one of the busiest theme parks in the country. I called my ex-wife immediately. She answered after the third ring, her voice annoyingly cheerful. "Oh, really? Didn't notice?" She laughed as if leaving a child in a massive theme park was just some quirky oversight. In the background, her new husband chuckled. "Good kids never." "Get lost," he mocked. I clenched my jaw. "Stay by your phone," I said coldly. "You'll hear from me soon." They thought this was funny. They thought I was powerless. They had no idea what was coming. Chapter 2. Silent Planning. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. The best revenge is never loud. It's quiet, calculated, and surgical. I drove straight to Disney, my mind running through every legal and personal lever I could pull. By the time I got there, my son was sitting with a staff member, clutching a melted Mickey Mouse ice cream in one hand and his small backpack in the other. When he saw me, his lower lip trembled, and he whispered, "I knew you'd come." I hugged him tightly, forcing myself to stay calm for his sake, but inside I was a storm. That night, I sat at my desk while my son slept peacefully in his room. Began making calls. Not to lawyers, not yet, but to people who owed me favors, former coworkers, an old friend in the sheriff's department, even a neighbor who worked at the county clerk's office. By morning, I had everything I needed to set things in motion, a full record of every missed child support payment from my ex. She didn't know I'd been tracking, evidence of her leaving our child unsupervised. Disney security was more than happy to cooperate when I explained. And one little detail she'd forgotten, the court order that already stated she was not allowed to leave the state without notifying me. She had just handed me the perfect legal hammer, and I was about to swing it hard. Chapter 3. The Trap Springs Shut. 2 days later, I filed an emergency custody petition. The judge granted a temporary order almost instantly once he saw the Disney eye. Security footage. My son alone, scared, while my ex-wife and her new husband were nowhere in sight. I didn't tell her. I wanted her to find out in the most public, humiliating way possible. That weekend, my ex-wife hosted a big backyard barbecue. All her friends, her parents, and her smug new husband were there. She posted it all over social media. Wine glasses, expensive steaks, captions like "living our best life." While they laughed by the pool, a pair of uniformed sheriff's deputies walked through the front gate. Conversations stopped. Drinks froze in midair. "Mrs. Collins?" one deputy asked. She smirked. "Yes, you're being served. Court order, temporary suspension of custody. Your son is now in the sole care of his father pending further hearing." Her face went white. Her wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the patio. The deputies didn't even let her speak. They read the judge's words out loud so every single guest heard exactly why she was losing custody. Her new husband stammered, "This is insane." The deputy cut him off. "Sir, this includes a restraining order. You are not to be within 500 ft of the child." Everyone stared. The once happy hostess was now sobbing, mascara running, her reputation shredded in front of her entire social circle. And I wasn't even there. I was at home with my son, grilling burgers, smiling as the text messages and missed calls began flooding in. Chapter 4. Turning Custody into Collapse. Over the next week, my ex-wife went from smug confidence to desperate panic. She hired an expensive attorney, thinking she could fight the custody order. But every court date just made things worse for her. Why? Because I wasn't just presenting Disney security footage. I had months of documented negligence, missed school pickups, doctor appointments she skipped, times she left our son with strangers so she could get away for the weekend, every photo, every witness statement, every time-stamped message. I stacked them like ammunition. Her lawyer began sweating in court. Her parents, once her biggest offenders, started asking me what was really going on. Then came the financial hit. When I got full custody, child support flipped. Now she owed me. And because she was living well beyond her means with her new husband, she couldn't keep up. The court froze her accounts until she paid. Her new husband, suddenly realizing he was now funding not only their lifestyle, but also her debt to me, began to crack. Friends told me they'd seen him storm out of their condo more than once. Months later, they sold their car, moved into a smaller apartment, and she took a second job. Meanwhile, I kept everything quiet on my end. No gloating, no public posts. I let her imagine me enjoying peace, stability, and every birthday, holiday, and bedtime story with our son. And she was right. I was. Chapter 5. The Final Blow. It was late December, and my son and I were decorating the Christmas tree when my phone buzzed. It was a number I hadn't seen in years. My ex-wife's mother. Her voice was trembling. We need to talk in person. I agreed to meet them at a small cafe downtown. When I walked in, both her parents were sitting there looking older, worn down. They didn't waste time. We didn't know how. Bad things were, her father admitted. She told us you were an absent father. We believed her, but after what happened at Disney and what we've learned since... He looked away in shame. Her mother slid an envelope across the table. This is for you and our grandson. We want to help, and we want to be a part of his life again. Inside was a cashier's check, enough to cover a full year of private school tuition and more. They were done defending her. I thanked them, but in my mind, the gears were already turning. I had one last move to make. That night, I sent my ex-wife a single email. No threats, no insults, just a scanned copy of the signed affidavit from her own parents detailing everything they'd witnessed about her neglect. Within 24 hours, her lawyer dropped her as a client. Within a week, she'd lost every ounce of credibility in court. Her new husband, he bailed 2 weeks later, leaving her with debt, a ruined reputation, and no family left to lean on. The last time I saw her, she was sitting alone in a cheap diner, staring at a cup of coffee like it was the last thing she could afford. Me? I walked past hand in hand with our son and didn't even glance her way. Revenge wasn't loud this time. It was living a better life without her. Epilogue. My son's final word. A few months later, we were at the mall picking out new shoes for my son when we heard a voice behind us. Hey, it was her. Hair messy, makeup, smudged, clothes that looked like they'd come from a thrift bin. She forced a smile at my boy. Sweetie, it's been a while. I've missed you. My son froze. He didn't step toward her, didn't hug her. He just looked her dead in the eye and said calmly, "No, you didn't. If you did, you wouldn't have left me at Disney." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He turned to me. "Dad, can we go? We've got better things to do." I smiled, proud beyond words. We walked away, leaving her in the middle of the crowd. Not just abandoned, but forgotten. Sometimes the most brutal revenge isn't what you do, it's who you raise your child to become. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you have.